Hello and welcome to another episode of Roots of Sustainable Impact. I'm your host, Eloisa Marquez Gonzalez, and I am so excited today to have my friend Latane Brackett here in the episode. Welcome, Latane, to Roots of Sustainable Impact.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
And for folks that haven't met you, I just want to say that Latane has been a great champion of inclusive innovation. He is an executive coach at the DOE and NSF Corps, NIH Entrepreneur Bootcamp, and he has always been empowering founders of deep tech to think more deeply on who they are impacting with their technologies. And also Latane has been instrumental in broadening the participation of underrepresented communities in technology, clean energy, and beyond. And Latane and I had the pleasure of meeting in actually an accelerator for Browning the Green Space. So it is my pleasure to have you on the show, Latane. And for folks that have not met you before, can you hear a more in-depth introduction of yourself, a quick bio, if you mind?
Yeah, I'll do that. I guess I would say, first of all, I'm the Innovation Program Manager for Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. So I'll start with that, which is a HBCU. I am a proud graduate of another HBCU, which is Norfolk State University, with a electronics engineering degree, and then later I went and got an MBA from Texas A&M Commerce. I have about 30 years background in food manufacturing, supply chain operations, being with organizations like General Mills, Campbell Soup, Frito-Lay, PepsiCo, and then also Abbott Laboratories doing medical nutritionals, making infant formula, as well as powdered agglomeration processes. So I've done all kind of high-speed packaging of products. And I've been fortunate enough to lead in some, from being starting out as a project engineer, and then the maintenance manager, technical manager, plant manager, director of ops, and then VP of ops. So very fulfilling for that standpoint. Then I made a transition to higher ed, where actually doing project work initially at Tennessee State University, and then ultimately ended up becoming the executive director of student affairs. After that, I did a short time with Amazon, and unfortunately, my sister became very ill, had a stroke, nearly died. Her dog did die, and became my sister's caregiver. So I left my job, became a caregiver because her husband was already deceased. And through that, I ended up having an opportunity to get just before COVID. So then right after that, I ended up with a remote job for the first time in my life, working for the National Gym Consortium, where I was the principal manager of innovation programming. That linked me up with the National Science Foundation and really changed my whole life. From that experience, I became aware of this whole inclusive innovation ecosystem that I didn't know anything about. And it was my role to have a lot of our fellows who were doing deep tech research to think about commercializing their work. And as a result of that, I became very highly involved in that process. And since left, came to Jackson State. And so now I'm doing work with the NSF, with the DOE, and also with the National Science Foundation, and also with programs like BGS, Browning the Green Space Access. So I'm so pleased to be a part of all those things. They're very privileged as well, because it's an honor.
Fantastic. Thank you for that introduction. And yes, I did not my introduction did not do you justice. So thank you. And tonight we're talking about partnerships. We were discussing before of the importance of partnerships and their role in building a pipeline for startups and other organizations. So as we start this conversation, let's get on the same page of what are partnerships. How would you define a partnership between organizations or professionals?
That's a good question. But let me before I define partnership, let me tell you two things. One is that I have three principles. One is you treat everyone well. The second one is this whole notion of what I call relational equity, and that's the quality of the relationship that you have with people, and that's the enabler for something that is intentional collaborations. And when you think about partnerships, it's a combination of those three things. It's people that you treat well and you respect, and they respect you. People that you have built some equity with, right? So they trust you, you trust them. And by the way, we always talk about building trust, but the foundation of that, the pylons of trust building, is integrity. So it starts with our individual integrity, which in turn becomes a way we can trust one another. And then that gives us the ability to do the intentional collaborations, which really ultimately are those three tenets of the partnership. A partnership enables us to do so much more than what we could do on our own, and so much more delivery to others. So we may be partnering not for ourselves, but for the folks that we serve. And through that partnership, they get more.
Yes, you can exponentially grow your impact when you have those partnerships. And what are good ways of identifying and evaluating? Because not all partnerships are the same, and it doesn't mean that we should or could get into a partnership with every person that we meet or that we know. So, what are good ways of evaluating those? What could be a good partnership?
Well, I think one of the most important ways of evaluating a partnership is really understanding, is there a match in values? I mean, so really understanding, well, first, what are your values? I've even had some co-founders to tell me, oh, I have this company and the company values are X, Y, and Z. Then I said, well, what are your values? And you're like, well, I don't know what my values are. Well, how does your organization have values that you don't? Uh, because that, again, that's everything is foundational, like trust and your personal values go into the founding of your organization. And as well as if you're going to have a partnership, we need to make sure that we have a match, right? That we value the same things. And this doesn't necessarily mean that one person is good or bad. Let me give an example. If you value individual contribution and somebody else values team contributions, you have a mismatch, right? And you see in a lot of organizations that there is a mismatch between the reward systems. If you're rewarding individual contributions, at the end of the year, we're going to say who is the best employee. But all year long, you're telling me to work with everybody. Then are we really going to go do that? Or am I going to try to make sure I win best employee? So that's really, really important. So I think that's one of them, is around the whole piece around the values. The other piece of it is around what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish? And do you have things that you're trying to do the same things, or at least go in the same direction? Now, let me also say, going back to this whole notion of intentional collaboration, that does not mean that we're aligned on every single thing that we're trying to do. But are there some things that we are aligned on, and can we partner on those? So if you have 10 things, I don't have to align with all 10, but are there 3 things or 3 initiatives or one program that you have that makes sense that we work together on, and then go do that? Because I think that one of the things, everybody's trying to find the perfect match, sort of like trying to find the perfect mate, right? But when you find that person who's perfect, why do they want you? Because you're not perfect. None of us are perfect. So you want to make sure you have the values, and then you have the work and the effort. And then you're going to be committed, right? You have to be committed to the work, to the partnership, and through thick and thin, because you know what, there may be some thin times, some lean times. And then when things are going really well, don't leave me then, right? We're partnering along, and then all of a sudden, you get a great award or a grant, and then now you go work with some other people. I always laugh because, it's like when people are trying to get a home or something, and then they come to you, like, hey, I'm trying to get this house. I really want you to pray for me. I want you to encourage me and think about me and all this. And then they get in the house and they invite other people to the party other than you. And so I think it's really, really important that we have partnerships that can last. That's the other thing too. Think about longevity. Is this something for right now, or is it going to be something that's going to last? And if it's not going to be a lasting partnership, and sometimes you need something in the moment, be honest about it. Don't lead people along and make them think that you're going to be with them, for 5-6 years. You might say, hey, we want to partner on this specific event. and you may not partner on anything else, but at least be honest, and so that people go into it with open eyes.
Yes, expectations, managing expectations is huge. And sometimes it's difficult because it's hard for folks to say, "Hey, we're only partnering for this one event," and because you don't want to break the other person's heart in a way.
Well, and you know, you may go into it saying that you're only going to partner with one event, and it goes so well, you may change your mind, right? It may exceed both of your expectations, and then even your client or your constituents or your let's for example, let's say if you have innovators that you're serving, they may say, "Listen, what you all did was fantastic," because you know you get the feedback, you do the survey, and you find out that this was a great partnership, and it's more than they got more out of it than what you even thought that they would get out of it. And in which case you may change your mind and do more. But again, it's about being honest about what your real intent is. And no one wants to feel like they're being used, right? Uh, and it may be something again that you may circle back because you may have another activity or something, big initiative that's similar to that, and you come back to them and say, "Listen, we did this 3 years ago. Love to partner with you again because you did such a great job. Let's move forward."
Yes, yes, absolutely. And sometimes it might be the opposite. I'm thinking where maybe today is not the right moment for whatever
Yes.
reason for both parties, but in a year or two, it might be. Things change.
Well, let me give an example for that. For you know, the Brown and Green Space Access Program. I met Carrie Bowie um, by Zoom, right? Because it was the middle of COVID and everything. And so I had never met him in person. So I ended up at an event with the National Renewable Energy Lab in Avon, Colorado. And just so happened he was there. But he was only there like 30 more minutes. I never saw him the whole time. And that we run into each other. He says, I'm leaving in 30 minutes. So he tells me about this program that he was going to do. So what I did was I immediately went and I sent him a letter and I said, email, "Hey, I'm interested in that. If you need any instructors, let me know." And a few days later, I got a note back. I remember it distinctly because I was about to go into Lowe's. Uh, and I saw the note. I stopped to read it. It says, "We do not need any instructors." And I almost stopped reading, right? Because I was disappointed. And then I read more and it says, "But would you be willing to audit our program? Just watch." And so that's how I got involved with Brown and the Green Space in the very first year. I was not an instructor. And from that, watching, I do a lot of coaching. Like I probably do coaching sessions, probably 350 coaching sessions, and it's probably on the low end in a year. Um, and then after that, the very next year, year two, he comes back and he asks me, would I be willing to be the lead instructor? So again, it was no, but the no, Alex, was the first two letters of not now. But because, and I think sometimes for me, I reflect back on that because I think that look at this great partnership. This in the third year, we had a great program this week, great turnout, not just in terms of people showing up, but in terms of people showing up. And if I had took that as rejection at the beginning, this never would have happened this way. It would have happened, but I wouldn't have been a part of it.
Correct. Yes, and the event was fantastic. So I'm glad you stuck with it. So all these
Oh,
years.
I love it. I'm committed to it. And again, it's a great partnership and with all the other instructors as well. And getting a chance to meet folks like yourself who are just doing phenomenal things.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And thank you on behalf of all my active peers. Again, thank you for your direction and guidance and for challenging us to think differently. So now continue with the partnerships and now that we are in the Access, talking about the Access program, how can small businesses or even professionals position themselves to have partnerships with maybe larger organizations? Because to give you an example, what where my question is coming from is there's many grants coming up for clean energy. However, there's always a question of how stable you are, and a startup or a smaller organization might not be seen as stable as the organization providing the grant needs to. It doesn't have as much confidence. Let's call it that way. So how can a small organization set themselves up to partner with other larger, more stable organizations?
Well, that's an easy question for me because being an instructor with the NSF I-Core program and the DOE I-Core program, the one thing we always talk about is customer discovery, right? And so it's right reaching out and having the discussion, me calling Eloisa and say, hey, listen, tell me about what it is you're trying to accomplish. What is it, the work that you're doing? Where you're being successful, where you're not being successful. And then being able to, from that, now I know what you're trying to do, what issues you're having in terms of, what we call pains and gains. And then I can have the opportunity to say, you know what, I know that you had an issue with this particular aspect of setting up, say, the programming. I have some expertise in that. So I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm helping you to solve a problem that you've already identified for me. And I think that part of that, it all starts with, you have to put yourself out there. And what do I mean? I mean, how many times have folks go to meetings or even virtually, and you sit through the whole thing, and there may be like 500 people on the call, and you never once put your information out to say, hi, my name is Latane Brackett. I'm the Innovation Program Manager at Jackson State University. I would love to build relational equity with you and figure out how we can intentionally collaborate. Here is my calendar link. Here is my LinkedIn profile. Now, is that all 500 people going to reach out to me? Absolutely not. Can I even take all 500 calls? Absolutely not. But if I can get 5 people that are willing to sit with me for 30 minutes, and it's not me trying to sell them something, it's me listening, it's me learning. And then from that, figure out, is there a need or a niche that I may be able to provide? Because guess what? You may find that big company needs somebody like you, right? They may need somebody who's diverse and talented and skilled, right? Because we're not trading off what you look like for what you can do. It's both. And they may give you an opportunity to do some small piece of work. Again, you go in, you excel. And from that, you're able to grow because, you show what you can do. You get bigger pieces of work, and then you both grow together.
Wonderful. Is there any ways to think about those partnerships on the short term and long term? How do you evaluate? Is this a short term partnership, maybe a long term? Because sometimes you have to make trade offs on how you engage into those partnerships, thinking this could become something long term, or it could be very fruitful short term, but it's just going to be a short partnership. Is
right.
there always that?
The way I would look at it, for example, it's situational. Because let's say that you normally do a certain kind of work, but there's not a lot of that work. And somebody says, hey, I have this other thing, and they're willing to take a chance on you. That may be something that you may want to go do now, right? Because one, you need work and they need your labor, right? So it may match up, but it may not be necessarily something that you want to do ongoing. On the other hand, it might be something that you want to add. When I used to work at Frito-Lay, they had a term they used to say, grow the core and add more. So the thing that you were proficient in, obviously you want to grow, do more of that. But at the same time, are there other things that you're not even aware of that you also could be doing, that you might also be great at doing and be successful at, that you can grow what you can do? So you're not just doing one thing. And ultimately, you end up being diversified. I think the other part of that, though, to your question, is really around this notion of, okay, what kind of, again, it goes back to the values piece, right? Because it may be I did some work and maybe we don't necessarily like how we do business. Or it may be that, it may be that I'm more people focused and the other person is not, right? Well, ultimately, at the end of the day, that may be a mismatch. However, is there a way that we might be able to, I mean, something to sit down and have a conversation? This is how I work. And one of the biggest problems I think that prevents us from even doing that is the lack of communication, right?
Mhm.
Understanding the ways of working. How do you work? How do you communicate? What do you want me to communicate, right? If I'm very verbose and I want to give a long thing, you may not want to hear all that. You want to know what are the metrics. So maybe I start with the metrics, and then if you want some more, I can give you the extra. But that comes out of developing a relationship and starting to communicate and trying to understand each other and understand how can we support one another in what we're trying to achieve. And at the end of the day, if we're both looking to grow, then it may be that you may not even be able to grow with me, but am I willing, out of the work that you've done for me, to give a reference for you to someone else? Because I think the other thing that is very, very powerful is this whole notion of being able to use that, again, that relational equity to form other partnerships. I just this week I had a young lady reach out to me, she's a doctor, and she's a startup co-founder, and she told me about what she was doing and so forth. I was so intrigued by what she was doing. I said, I'm going to drop you on my LinkedIn right now while I'm talking. Well, yesterday, because I was busy, I didn't see it. I just saw it today while I was on a train to New York. Someone reached out to me who had done some partner with me on something else and said, "Hey, I'm a board director for an organization that is focused on this very issue. Would you mind connecting me with this person?" I did it immediately. And again, so it may not be that you're going to work with me directly, but am I willing to give you access to my network?
Yes, that's fantastic, and it's about leveraging everyone's strengths, um, as well. So that's fantastic. And you started mentioning before about you said about bringing your diversity in. So
Yes.
what what role can certifications such as women owned, minority owned, or sustainable frameworks, sustainability frameworks like the B Corp or ESG, how, those certifications or frameworks play a role in securing some of the partnerships?
Well, I think some organizations they're looking to do more with regard to engaging everyone. Okay, so being more inclusive. So then they want to identify folks that have certain designations or certifications that are skilled. So again, I always want to emphasize the fact that just because you're looking to work with women or you're looking to work with diverse individuals, that doesn't mean that somehow that there are less than the others. Um, but being able to be designated or certified, which obviously there's a process to that. You don't just get that, right? You have to go do something to get that. And sometimes is a lot to it in terms of what you need to go do in order to be certified. But now I know that, hey, I can go work with Eloisa because I know that she has certain certifications and she is competent and she has delivered. And so that gives another gateway for you to get involved and be a part. When I think about it, I do a lot of work in the inclusive area. So I frame it as the inclusive innovation ecosystem. Everyone is included. And honestly, if you're trying to solve problems, you want everyone's input. I don't want to go around suffering with the problem for 3 more days or losing millions of dollars because I didn't want to ask Eloise's opinion and she knew the answer all along. So you can't exclude people. You have to bring everybody to the table. So I think people, leaders are looking for answers. They're looking for solutions and they don't care about where they get them. They care about the solution. And so being able to be inclusive and engaging folks that are diverse and don't think like you, don't look like you, and don't act like you. Again, the glue to all of that is values. We have shared values. But as long as we have that, let's move forward.
Correct, correct. And any strategies as we're trying to find more partners, because especially in the clean space, it's all about partnerships. Like there's no one organization that's gonna do this alone, either for profit, nonprofit, or even communities. It's always a partnership. Is there any strategies that you find more effective on finding those networks, finding those opportunities for partnership?
Yes, I would say one is you have to get out of your comfort zone, right? So you have to be willing to become a part of uh, organizations that that serve that area. For example, um, how do you learn about SBIR? If you don't know, like, Small Business Innovation Research, the grants that are being given by 11 agencies, upwards of $2 million that never have to be paid back. And if you don't, you have to be willing to learn, right? Because how many times have I talked to somebody and said that, and then I said, you know what, are you aware of SBIR? And they say yes, but then they really are not aware of it. So you got to be vulnerable too, right? And be willing to say what you don't know, and be willing to ask questions. Also, the for example, the NSF, the DOE. I could name off 11 agencies that have programs and free webinars,
Mhm.
right? Take advantage of everything that's free. One of the things that happened out of COVID is a lot of things are now on Zoom or on different platforms that weren't there before, right? You had to be in person to be in the know. And now you don't have to do that. You can go and Google it or use AI to find out it, but also continue to grow your network. And look, be willing to go with somebody to a meeting. Maybe I'm not comfortable that, or sure of myself enough. I'm going to go with Eloisa, right? I heard even a story this week about somebody said the reason why the way they got into access, they came with somebody else, right? And then you find out that you have to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to seek information. Uh, you know, when folks are offering themselves in terms of, hey, I'm willing to get on the calendar with you, take those opportunities, sit down with them, and they can share with you. Because what I say in this, particularly with diverse individuals, sometimes we count ourselves out
Yeah.
because you'll look at it. For example, even with the NSF I-Corps program, right? By the time you tell folks that, hey, but these people that are doing the, first of all, they're serial entrepreneurs. They got PhDs and this, and they got all this extensive training. From where I come from, as a my mom had 8 kids and my grandmom had 15. I'm thinking about, can I afford this? Right? The programs are free, so I've
Mhm.
already excluded myself by saying, "Oh, I can't afford that," without asking, what was the commitment? The commitment is your time, not money. And in fact, some of these programs, they give you micro grants, and even if you do a national program, you can get $50,000. There are a lot of different programs like Venture Well, all these different organizations where you can apply, put your proposal in, and you may end up getting some money as opposed to having to pay some money. But the other part of it is the sweat equity piece. You can't get around that. None of this happens without you being willing to work and be committed to what it is you say you're trying to achieve.
Yes. And to that, I'm going to give a shout out to Michelle Miller Grove because she convinced me to sign up for Access, to apply for Access, because I had this count myself out. At first, when I saw the Access program, I was like, I do services. This is not for me. And she's like, yes, it is. So go and apply. So thank you to Michelle. That's how I got into the Access program.
Well, that was not a setup. I did not know that, but it just illustrates how true this is, and that um, being able to take a risk, right? And I think the other thing that underlies that is we talked about a little bit about the values piece is sometimes we think that we're unwilling to partner because we think somebody's going to steal our idea, somebody's going to try to manipulate us, or if I work with you and you're bigger than me, then you're going to force me out or try to buy me out, and I don't want to necessarily sell because I want to let this grow and be part of a legacy. Um, but again, I think we have to be willing to engage and be willing to ask questions. Again, have mentors, have others that can say, hey, you can bounce the idea. Hey, should I do this? Or how should I do this? I'm going to say this. I had one of my managers, his gentleman's name is Steve Sterling. I'm going to call his name. And he said something to me that it changed my total outlook on how I view things. most of the time, if you ask somebody something, again, we do X, Y, and Z, they're going to say yes or no. And the most folks are going to say no. He never asked that type of question. His question all was, how might we? When you ask how might we, you don't get to say no. What you have to do is something clicks in your mind. You have to think about how can we do it? How can it happen? And I think that that just opens so many doors for people. You know what? Because it might be that Eloisa and I can't do this, but the how might be we need Michelle, we need Shantae,
Yes.
we need Carrie. We need somebody, Mark, we need somebody else in the picture. And then we had that person's expertise and skills or resources, then we can make this happen.
Correct. It opens that creativity of how are we going to solve it, not how we cannot do it. It's like, how is this going to actually happen?
Absolutely.
And perfect. This has been a great conversation. Well, I am as you know, I'm a systems and process people in person. So I would love to know any tips or tricks that you have for managing partnerships, nurturing these partnerships, making sure that you stay up to date, that you remember what it's important for them. So any words of wisdom on how to keep up with this, with the partnerships and also with everything you're learning? Because as you mentioned, every time you get on a call, you're going to learn something. There's so many programs, so many organizations out there that you just need to keep track of that. What has worked for you?
Well, I think that you have to always be in a learning mode. For example, I just completed 2 weeks ago. No, was that last week? Yeah, last week I completed the Black Venture Institute, learning about how to be a venture capitalist and an angel investor and how to understand cap tables, a skill set that I did not have. Right. So learning that, and by doing that, I also got tapped into 62 other individuals who were trying to learn together. What I do is I reached out to every single one of them, and I'm having one-on-one meetings, 30 minutes at a time. You don't need to take up all somebody's time, because guess what? You still got to get work done, and I do too. And trying to understand what can I share with them that I'm aware of, that a resource that they may need or person they may need to be connected with, and they in turn are doing the same for me. So I think that's one thing is that it keeps you fresh and up to date. I think the other thing for me is really being intentional. Being intentional. Yeah, I use AI and all that, and my notes on my Apple phone and so forth, my iPhone. But guess what? I also do. I have a yellow notebook that I used when I was in grade school, and when I'm talking to individuals, I write things down immediately. And to the extent that I can, I try to immediately follow up on what I said I would go do. And what ends up happening when you do that, well, first of all, you develop a reputation that you're going to do what you say. And guess what happens? Other people will do what you said they would do, because when they reached out to you, you did. And so now you can connect Eloisa with someone and say, hey, listen, here's the introduction to Eloisa. And then within a day, if it takes that long, somebody has already reached out to you. And so now you that's kind of organic, and it spirals off. I'm not engaged with that anymore. I don't have to manage that whole thing, that whole relationship. I just help get it started. And I gave some of my relational equity, right, to that process. And then you're able to build your own relational equity. So to me, I'm very serious about that. I spend time doing collaboration meetings like daily. Listen, if somebody reaches out to me, if I give you my phone number and say you can call me, I'm going to answer the phone. Now, but I always tell you, when I give you my phone number, immediately put your name, because I don't answer phone numbers that I don't know. Yeah. So you got to be in my circle in that regard. But also it may mean that, you may need just to text something real quick. A lot of times you can't get on the phone because you're doing something, but you can certainly send a text back immediately. And then making yourself available to people and listening without being judgmental, but also giving them real, honest feedback. I'll say this. I talk about this whole notion of loyalty, building loyalty versus cronyism. And the only difference between being loyal and being a crony is your integrity.
Yeah.
we can run together, but if I'm doing something wrong, is Eloise going to tell me, Latane, you shouldn't be doing that, or you're just going to go along with it? And I think that that's really, really important when people know you have high integrity and you're someone who they can trust, and also trust me with other people that you know and care about that need help, that you can send them my way, and that I'm going to give them the best advice that I can, or support them, or connect them the best way I can.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Latane, as we wrap up this conversation, this has been fantastic, and I would like to wrap up with the last words of what would you tell the startup founder or entrepreneur in this new year? By the time this episode goes live, it's going to be the new year. So anything you want to share with the audience on how to build partnerships for the new year?
Yeah, I would say be assertive, take the chance. And I guess I'll say it this way. This is how I frame it. Everyone starts with no. And you keep the no unless you do something to change it. So, will Eloisa partner with me? If I say to myself, no, guess what? I'm right. But if I reach out to you and say, Eloisa, is there anything or how might we partner? You might say, well, maybe your main business that you're doing, that's not a good match. But hey, there's something else that I'm starting to do. This might be an opportunity. So look, I moved from a no to a maybe, and that may end up turning into a yes. But if you never ask anyone, or if you never engage, or if you never, take the chance, you keep the no. And you always want to trade up from the no.
Yes. Fantastic. So taking the chances and being persistent and intentional. Then, well, thank you very much. And we are wrapping up on partnerships, but now we're moving on to what I think is also a fun question. And if you can meet one or three people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
If I could meet three people dead or alive, one person I would want to meet would be my grandfather, and that's because when my grandfather passed before my father was born, so he didn't even know his father, and so neither did I. And I would like to. My father has transitioned on, and we had such a great relationship. And I would love to know the man who produced my dad. So that would be one from a personal standpoint. I also would like to sit down with Mahatma Gandhi and to understand, what he was going through and the mission that he had in terms of, with peace. How do we, but again, we just know, what we hear of it, but I like to know from him, what was really going on. And somebody that goes on a hunger strike, right, and not eating, and being that committed to what it is that they were trying to accomplish. I would like to understand, really honestly, all of that, not just in terms of why you did it, but what was the process, and you said, we eat every day, right? We talk about somebody in a hunger strike, then I'm after this, I'm going to go eat. But having to go without something to get something, and that whole piece around sacrifice. The third person thing is really I like to talk to Steve Jobs. And the reason why I like to talk to Steve Jobs is with all the genius around Apple and innovation. But what intrigues me most is building this tribe. I mean, Apple is different than most companies in that, you go to in fact, I had to recently go to an Apple store Saturday. Monday. It was Monday of this week. And people are just hanging around in there. Think about most places that you go buy what you need and you leave. You don't come and hang around. Yeah. And so how do you build that kind of commitment that people love what you have and they're, committed? People who have Apple products, they have all their products are Apple products. It's not like you buy something else. But also building the vision and the mission that makes things fun and engaging and keeps people really in your funnel as you think about it and being lifetime customers.
Yes. These are very interesting people that you will want to meet, and I would love to be in those conversations. Well, or if you will share those your findings, this is fantastic. So, Latane, thank you so much for being in the program today. It has been an amazing conversation as always. Thank you again for your time, and thank you, dear listener, for being also listening to our conversation. And if you like this and any of the other conversations, please like the podcast and share it with other founders and other professionals so they can also benefit from these wonderful insights. Before we close, I'm sorry, how can people reach you?
They can reach me at my LinkedIn. It's Latane, Latane, Brackett, Brackett. And I guess I can provide a QR code so folks can connect with me and get on my calendar. My calendar is open, and I do connect with folks and try to support, particularly if you're an innovator or you have an idea, and even if you're just at that stage, we would love to connect with you so we can get you involved with some of the programming that will help you be successful.
Wonderful. And we'll put those links in the show notes as well. And so now, thank you very much for being on the program, Latane. And thank you very much, dear listener. Until next time. Good night.
Thank you so much.